in most of the sessions talking about is that the women-owned export companies support. So as I understand, these points are going to be the base for new or for the plans for strategic plans or something like this for ITC. Am I right?
So yes, there are programs geared for encouraging, supporting women entrepreneurs.
How would you fit all these players together into a coherent formula based on co-opetition instead of competition in order to pool resources together to offer relevant services and support to both men and women, recognizing the differences in the needs that each have? And what is the role of each player in the formula? And how do you align each player's capabilities into a synergetic and smart partnership?
Together, I believe that everybody should be doing their part, and the consensus in the group was that the government has to rule and has to build the environment for the business to be done, no matter what kind of business you are. If you're in the business of trade, the government should build the environment for trading and not do your work or you trying to do the government's work, as well as the NGOs or the TPOs. So that's the part that we believed in the group, that we have to have very specific tasks for very specific actors.
When we're talking about integration or when we're talking about FTAs, I mentioned that these are not always win-win situations, and that something must be considered when we talk about this, which is asymmetries. Asymmetries between countries, asymmetries between regions. I mentioned the example that in the first round of negotiations between Cannes and the European Union, we are discussing asymmetries, and this is vital for when you start discussing trade agreements or integration. And I did not see asymmetries reflected on the PowerPoint.
I mentioned that you have to take into consideration the strategies and the winners and losers of the process. I didn't mention exactly asymmetry, but because we discuss asymmetry, we also discuss sectors within a particular countries that will lose in the process of regional integration. So I try to summarize it in the way of looking at the strategies of who have to win and who have to lose, and find strategies that will cater and diminish the impact that we will have on the different sectors. But you're right, asymmetry is one key part, particularly when the regional integration is between countries that are very different.
Issue. This is regarding strategic alliance. In my view, I think as regards developing countries and developed countries, one of the most strategic alliances has been the outsourcing. And I would like to hear a little bit in terms of those countries that are successful at outsourcing. How do they build this strategic alliance with the transnational corporations? I think it would be something very useful to hear how you went about to build this strategic alliance.
You, as whether a developing country or a developed country, it really does not matter. As a manager of a company, you have to make a decision. This is what I want to sell to these people. In other words, you pick a market and you design an offer for that market. Whether it is in the form of outsourcing or in a marketing joint venture or a production joint venture is something else. Now, in that, if you're not clear in positioning yourself to the other partner, whether it be a buyer or a distributor, again, is another issue. If you're not clear on that, if this is not well thought, if this is not well planned, and you are only really targeting at the low-cost competition or price competition, that probably is not sustainable. And that was the heart of the issue. Now, outsourcing is one form of an alliance. And if it is in the strategy of the outsourcing enterprise, fine. But otherwise, it's just subcontracting.
Here we have consumers who are demanding that they will not buy products that are flown from Kenya to the UK, primarily to Tesco and Marks and Spencer. I wonder how educated the consumer is in asserting this, because if you look at some of the facts that have been done by Granfield University, it shows that flowers or horticulture grown in Kenya emit 3 times less than those grown in the UK and other countries. Now, the question is, how can we educate consumers so that they can also look at facts related to how the transportation is done using belly cargo where tourists are using these planes, and also that by driving to Tesco from their homes and back, they are emitting more carbon through their automobile.
Anybody have any suggestions? Mr. Val.
This issue was discussed, and we had Secretary General of ISO. He informed the participants that ISO, in fact, is working on a standard to objectively assess the impact of various transportation and other models on greenhouse gases. At present, it is arbitrary. I think once the logical and objective standards of measurement of impact is in place, possibly then both the buyers would become aware and more circumspect, and the supplier would know why they need to comply.